Hey everybody, this is Olan Hodges as well as the group Central 1. We are going to be presenting today on the core competencies for Chapter 4, Lesson 3, which covers lexical units, scalar data types, and composite data types. So lexical units, you can think of them basically as unit of words. That's how the word breaks down if you look at it for google.com and the origin. And it breaks down into 4 different types. You have delimiters, which in my opinion are basically like your verbs for your sentence. You have literals, which would be your proper nouns, identifiers, which would be your pronouns, and then your comments. I always think of the song Conjunction Junction when I was researching this week, and basically you're taking all of these different lexical units and creating a sentence in PLSQL. Delimiters are what actually give your structure meaning behind it, and your literals are just as it is for proper noun. Like my name's Olan Hodges, so that's the actual data that goes into what would be like the pronoun, like he or me, stuff like that. It's referencing my name, so that would be like your variables. And comments, they say that it's not integral to the application, but it is still a lexical unit because you use it within your application to mark up your code.
So composite data types basically hold copies of more than one thing, and they can hold a structure of data and can hold collections of data. The 4 main points we're going to talk on the next few slides. So on the next slide, we talk about SQL UDT, what your user-defined data types. They basically hold data structure. The data structure consists of an object, object type, and body implementation. And then below you can see a sample of script that implements that type of collection. On the next slide, record data types. The record data type is a record data structure. This row data that consists of data across many fields. And again, you have the below example that talks more about using a record data structure. The next one actually is kind of a combination. There's a few collection data types. They consist of the general SQL and then the PL SQL. SQL can hold a list of SQL data type, but the PLSQL can do more. It can hold a list of any SQL data type or record type. It also can hold a list of any PL SQL record. And then below is an excerpt from a script from the book. And then the last one is system reference cursors. And the system reference cursors are pointers to result sets. The basic use of a system reference cursor are used when you want to query data in one program and then process it in another. And then the prototype is in the example below.
So the last type that we have to cover are scalars, which are basically the exact opposite of what Chris was just talking about. Instead of it being a collection of things, it is only a single item. The actual prototype for declaring a variable is there and below in blue. So scalar data types can be characterized into 4 major groups. This figure here that we have from the book on page 127 shows us the major types, which range from number data types, character data types, large object data types, and date, time, and interval data types. And there are subtypes below that, which you can see in this figure. So one of the first ones are the character types. There are 2 main character types that we're going to be dealing with. One is the char type, and the other is the varchar 2. The main difference between them is that char is a fixed length, but it uses the full memory allotment as part of its allocation. Where varchar 2 is also fixed length. You set a length to it, but it will dynamically allocate that memory to whatever characters it needs to store based on what you put into it. Long and long raw data types are legacy data types that now are related to CLOB, which are character large objects files, as well as inclob, which are binary character, or sorry, not binary, Unicode character large object files. Next, we've got row ID, which is a legacy implementation, and then the newer U row ID. The U stands for universal, and it is basically an index of each of the rows in your tables. We have the date type, and this is basically going to give you the day. It's specific in the sense that you can get to the day, but it's not like what we will have next, which is the timestamp. This gives you down to the second, and if I remember right, even down to milliseconds. This is the type that you can use to by calling the sysdate function to get more specific times for when somebody inserted data or whenever an action occurred. And then finally we have the intervals. This is where you can set precision based on the day to second as well as year to month. And then the last part that we have here are LOBs, which stands for large objects. These can range from B files, which are external file references, globs, which are binary large objects, clobs, which are character large objects, and nclobs, which are Unicode character large objects. These are used for storing very large amounts of data. In a previous experience that I had with databases, blobs I used to store actual pictures in a database entry, so they can be used to store very large amounts of data. And that's the end of our presentation. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you didn't bore you to tears, but hope you guys have a good night.